Greetings and welcome to Second Breakfast, the second most important meal of the day. I'm Sean.
And I'm Jason. Sean, what's for second breakfast today?
Don't cry yet. We're not done. We still have next week. This week we're talking about episode 8, the season finale of the first season of Amazon Prime's original series, The Lord of the Rings of Power, titled Alloyed. What a name. What a title. Like, it's good,
Yeah.
but it's kind of low-key not. Like,
Yeah, it's weird.
It makes sense. I get it. Kind of a low-key title. Directed by Wayne Chi Yip, who's done a ton of episodes this season. Written by Jennifer Hutchison, who wrote, I think, Adar, the second episode, or maybe the third episode. No,
yeah, I think
not
that
Adar.
was I was going to say, Adar is the third or fourth.
Adar's the third. I think she wrote the second. She wrote the second episode, and also written by J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, the showrunners. I hope everybody enjoyed getting an extra episode this week in between.
Yeah.
We got to talk with Shane and Jesse from Meadow Vista Media. Just about the music overall. The Boys. It was a great time. If you guys have not listened to that, I really recommend that you do. And yeah, I mean, like I said, this isn't the end. We're going to have one more episode after this. I want to get this out of the way before we jump in, just so that anybody that doesn't listen to the end knows what's up. There's going to be one more episode after this where we're just going to talk about, like, you know, the whole thing overall.
Yeah, we might have to have a segment on Sauron and just, like, going through, like, things that happened in previous episodes or something.
Well, yeah, we've got some plans for stuff. Like, they're going to take 2 years to make another season, probably.
No.
We'll be back before 2 years.
Don't remind me.
Not weekly, but every couple months, I'm sure we'll come up with something to do.
With something.
We'll pop back up. So worry not. There will be intermediate stuff, or intermittent is the word I was looking for. Intermittent stuff to keep you held over during the dark times of the in-between seasons.
Yeah, the drought.
The content drought. Jason, you know a thing or two about podcasting through content droughts.
Yeah.
I want to jump to the Discord, which you guys can join. There's a link to do so in the episode descriptions, where we have some thoughts from people. I want to start with Zombie, who just said, "That was good. Thanks, Zombie. Thanks."
He's a man of few words.
Man of few words, but they're good words. Iron Aggro said best yet, which I don't know about that, but I thought it was pretty good.
Dude, I don't know. Like, part of me really agrees with him, and then part of me is like, well, there was other really cool stuff too. So I don't know. My rating is definitely at least a 9, but I'm not. It might go up to 9.5. I don't know that it's a 10, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that the stuff in this episode, like the things that happen, is the best yet. I don't know that I think the execution is the best. Even though I was a lot happier with the execution than I thought I was going to be. Swarles Barkley said, "So I said I would hold on last week's episode. This was a good season as a whole. I just miss Durin already. I think the reveals were good, and I can't wait to see where they take it."
Hell yeah.
Phil Games said, "Wow, that was an amazing episode. I think that the reveals were handled pretty well." And here we go. Spoilers. If you haven't watched the episode for some reason, turn it off. Turn off the podcast.
Right.
And the Hallbrand reveal was near perfection. I think the line they chose to reveal the stranger as Gandalf was also a good choice. It's a memorable line, but still non-specific enough that it didn't come off as cheesy. And I'm not sure about this, but was that line only in the extended cut of Fellowship? If so, that would make this reveal even more subtle, which I think you did say that it is only in the extended cut.
Yeah, as far as the movies, yeah.
I'm curious to see what they'll do with Sauron after this. I almost wonder if they'll have him change forms again to keep us guessing who he is in later seasons. Maybe introduce a crap ton of new characters next season, and then not reveal who he is for a few seasons or something. But maybe that would feel redundant. I don't know. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna do the who's Sauron thing again, especially with how there's been a lot of interviews that have come out. Pretty much, I think we finished the episode, and I refreshed my Twitter account at like 1 a.m. Friday morning, and there were like 4 interviews with Hallbrand and the showrunners that were published as soon as you could have possibly finished the episode, the review or the interview was up, you know? And it sounds like Charles Vicker, is that his name? Charlie Vicker?
Charlie Vickers. Yeah.
Charlie Vickers, who plays Hallbrand, or Sauron, I guess. I got to get used to calling him Sauron.
Right.
It sounds like he's back for season 2, and it sounds like he's now a main character in the cast. You know, like I mean, he
Right.
was a main character, but he's a main character
I'd
as
say he's
Sauron.
the main character now.
Is kind of how I read it as well from what they were
Yeah.
saying in interviews. It sounds like if this first season's main character is Galadriel, then at least the second season's main character is Sauron.
Yeah. Well, because there's a lot of stuff, like I've said before in previous episodes, like basically the stuff that has to happen in Numenor, all the people are already there.
Yeah.
And the stuff that has to happen in with the elves, like they're already there. The only people who are not like ready for the stuff that's going to happen in this age are the bad guys. Like they just have
Yeah.
so much stuff they have to do. So it makes a lot of sense that this next season would be a Sauron like
Yeah.
centric season.
And he said in a lot of interviews, we're gonna get his background, right? We're gonna find out why he was on the boat at the beginning of this season. Like, they're gonna tell us everything next season about Sauron. They're ready to finally pull the veil back, if you will. Chet Zale said, "I'm a bit upset the stranger, aka obviously Gandalf, didn't even try to help Sadik. I guess his powers are strange even to him, but at least try it. And they should have showed at least a little bit of Durin. He's part of the story too, and it's awkward he misses out on the finale." I kind of thought it was a little weird that they didn't show anything from the dwarves as well.
I don't know,
Um,
because I think
I think this episode feels rushed.
I
think-
disagree.
I do think this episode, I think they kind of were like, we got to get through some stuff now at the end. And I don't think it's rushed in the way where it like, oh, this ruins it for me. It's just like all the Sauron stuff happens way faster than I would have expected. And you clearly can see there's no room to cut to a different storyline because they have so much to do with the Sauron storyline. And I think that's partly because they didn't want to do like a season long, like, oh, look, Sauron's doing his thing, right? They wanted it all to happen right at the end, which I think works, but I think it also means that you have to really move at a pace where you don't have time to cut to different storylines. Like the dwarves or elves, not the elves, like the dwarves or the Southlands. Like we don't see Isildur in this episode.
I think the only way, I don't think it's rushed. I think that it's just like with what has to I think it's just a different pace. I don't think that it's rushed, right?
Mhm.
Like I definitely think that it is faster than what is happening, but like I think of this whole season as like an epilogue season,
Or a prologue.
or yeah, not epilogue,
Yeah.
yeah, prologue season. And because of that, I'm fine with at the end, you know, a lot of stuff does happen, but I think the only other thing they could have done then is just to make the show 9 episodes, because it's like,
Mhm.
okay, would you rather not find out who the stranger is or not really find, or I just don't think it would be as satisfying. Because yeah,
Yeah.
I do agree, it definitely feels like it was like, I don't know, like 60% or even 70% elves and Halbrand, and then like 25%
Stranger.
the Harfoots,
Yeah.
and the stranger, and then like 5% Numenor, right?
Yeah.
Like
And
there's
we'll
just like
talk-
no way you could throw in the dwarves as well to me. And I think that the
There
ending,
wasn't room for it, for sure. I think if you throw another 20 minutes, 30 minutes on this episode and you just do a really long finale,
I could see that too.
I think that would
think-
worked a little bit better.
Yeah, and I would have liked it as well, just like longer stuff.
Yeah.
I'm fine with, you know.
Mhm.
I think that would have been cool, but I also, okay, what are they gonna do that would be a satisfying ending from what they already did, right? Like, you have, you know, the Durins fighting or whatever, unless you like just wanted to really cliffhanger and find out like, oh, like Durin the Third fell into a coma or something. Or
I think I would have liked that fight, that dynamic to have come to a head in a way of like some sort of, like we were talking about last week, like there being a heart attack or something, like some kind of Odin shit, you know? Like
right.
And I will say, like, I guess kind of spoilers for the rest of the show, maybe, but I mean, I think everybody knows this. Isildur, I think leaving Isildur on a "oh no, he's dead" thing is kind of really stupid.
I don't
Like,
think so. If you're gonna do it with anybody and like you don't have like enough screen time to, because I would assume with what they want to do with him is that it would take too long to have any type of satisfying cliffhanger or whatever in this first season.
mhm,
Because like he's 100% showing up in the second season. I would think
I mean, yeah,
pretty
yeah, yeah,
quickly, right?
yeah, yeah. Here's how
Um,
they could turn it around, right? What if the rest of that scene from the end of this episode, Sauron immediately runs into Isildur,
I mean, yeah,
and
I
like
could see it.
we get some episodes of those two together or something. Like,
I don't know how Isildur then lives that interaction, unless Halbrand is just still under the guise, or he's like, oh, he doesn't know that I'm
yeah,
Sauron,
yeah,
obviously, right? Like,
yeah. I just think that it's a little silly to do like the fake out death on a character that I think for the most part a lot of people realize that he can't be dead.
right, yeah,
I think if it was like, I almost think if they did a fake out death for Elendil, I would buy that more.
mm.
I could be like,
Right,
maybe
because
they
he doesn't
really are
have to
gonna,
be there,
yeah,
right?
maybe it's like maybe they really are gonna just replace Elendil with Isildur, you know? And you'd be like, this is terrible writing for 2 years. You'd be like, how dare they get rid of Elendil? And then, you come back and you're like, oh, yo, Elendil is still alive, Whereas I
I
think
just
like
think
with Isildur, it's like, not for a second am I like, oh, are they just not gonna have Isildur in the rest of the show? Like,
Well, I think Isildur just has like the most growing to do out of like the
mhm.
Numenor cast. Like not like physical, but like as a character. Like he has to have the
Yeah,
most
yeah.
character arc for him to be compelling at the end.
I
Um,
like that he is left alone though on Middle Earth, so that he
yeah,
has that room to grow. I do like that.
yeah. I think that that's the idea, and I'm fine with it, especially because it's like okay, they don't show it, and we all know he's not dead, so I'm fine with it. The idea is, yeah, he's got to grow. So to me, I'm not really mad that he's not in the episode or that they leave it on a cliffhanger because I think it would feel cheap if literally within the same like one episode or whatever he's already been found and everything's fine.
Yeah, yeah. That would probably be cheap as well. I don't know. I really
I
don't.
think rewatching it when you're like going once season 2 is out, right, and you're like
Yeah,
you watch season 1 and you're going into season 2, I think it will feel better that way too.
yeah, for sure. I guess I just stand on the point of like, I think the fake out death to begin with doesn't work for me. So like, I guess you're right. Regardless how, if they would have just brought him back immediately, it would have been like, okay, then why did you even do this? I really don't think there's any way they can bring Isildur back into the story where I'll be like, I'm happy that they did this fake out death. At
Hmm.
this point, I'm just like, okay, they did this, whatever. Let's get past it and move on. I don't think
Well,
this was
I don't really
necessary.
think
We
it's
can.
like the fake out death in order to have the fake out death. It's a fake out death in order to put him in a position where he can have character development
I would I would agree, but the only
more than
thing is,
just political intrigue.
but the only thing that makes me think that it is a fake out death for the audience as well is then why wouldn't you show that he's alive before the season's over? Unless you wanted 2 years of people going, Isildur died, like at least the general audience
I don't
going
know.
that way.
When he's literally in the prologue of the Fellowship of the Ring, one of the like
Yeah,
best intros like in cinema. Like I don't know. I think most people know that he's the one who's wearing the ring and gets killed. Like I
yeah.
don't know.
Which is why I think that it doesn't work to
Hmm.
leave him in that state for 2 years. Like even if they had shown just like a shot of him like crawling out of a fucking under the rubble or something, and you
Hmm.
leave it there, or maybe like an orc walks by him and captures him or something. Like I I, I think there was a different cliffhanger you could have done for Isildur without the implication being that he's dead.
Hmm.
We let's talk about how we felt about the episode overall now that we're done debating Isildur. That's the last time he's gonna come up in this episode. Jason, how'd you feel about the episode overall?
Dude, really, really good. I'm sad it's come to a close. I won't cry on this episode.
next week you
No,
will then.
I really liked it. There's literally only one part, and I think we both are gonna talk about it. That it's
Hmm.
just like I don't fucking care about this scene at all in
Yeah,
any way, shape, or
yeah,
form. Like even worse than making it so that the elves need to bathe in the light of Mithril. Like it's
yeah,
worse than that. Like I
yeah,
just really don't care.
yeah.
Um, and I feel like that's the thing that makes me deduct a half point. Like I might be saying it's a 10 out of 10 if not for this. Like if there was something with like replace that scene with the seal door or the doors or something, bro. For the love of
Hmm.
God.
Hmm.
Like it's only like a 3-minute scene or something, but still I don't care. Give it to anybody else.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'd give this like an 8.5. Like I said, I felt like it happened. A lot of stuff happened really quickly. Um, I enjoyed everything that happened. I think I just would have liked a little more breathing time between, specifically in the Sauron plot. And I do think that's where cutting away to the dwarves or Isildur would have kind of helped that feel a little less frantic in its pacing.
Mm.
Um,
I
I
think it's just more on purpose that it's like, okay, you have literally a group of people calling the stranger Sauron, but then you have this person who is doing the things that Sauron
yeah,
does.
yeah.
So you're like, huh. And having those back to back to back, I think
I
is
think that
on purpose
works.
and I like it.
I think that works. I like the cutting between those. I think like with the Sauron stuff, it's just like they're like, okay, we have 3 weeks to do this, and then it's just boom, 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 boom. You know, I feel like if it had been like, okay, first attempt, all right, cut away to Isildur. All right, we're doing another attempt, cut away to Durin or something. Like just spacing out that storyline a bit, I think would have helped me with that. With that, I think it would have felt a little less um breakneck in its pacing for me.
Mm.
I agree on the Numenor thing. That's what you're talking about. If I were writing this episode, we would not have gotten any of those scenes. I would have kicked
Specifically
off.
like in Numenor.
I
Yeah.
also
I
wouldn't
think
have
the
had the
boat
boat scene.
I
I
think
would
the
have
boat
left that
scene's
for
fine.
season two.
I think the boat
Like,
scene's fine. It's like 2 minutes and I think there was so much grief and dread
mm-hmm.
in the last scenes with Numenor that it would
Yeah,
feel bad to not have at least even a glimmer of hope, right? Because that's supposed to be like the one of the driving themes in Lord of the Rings, right? Is like there's all these terrible, terrible things happening, but people are deciding to press on anyways, right? Both like the elves, literally that's like what happens with Galadriel and Elrond, and then that there's like a similar parallel scene with Muriel and Elendil. So I like that scene. The in Numenor scenes, I don't care.
so like, would you also cut the scene where they get back and they see that the king has died? Because I think that undercuts the hopefulness of the rest of the scenes where they're
I'd
on the
probably
boat.
cut that scene, especially, and I think we'll talk about it more later. Like they use that scene in like I don't know. We'll talk about it later. But yeah, I would probably cut that scene as well. I think you just have the scene with them on the boat, and you're like, okay, and then it ends with, "Sir, we can see the land," and then
Yeah,
you cut back to the Sauron plot or whatever, right? Or the
yeah,
Harfoot plot or something, right?
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it's just it's kind of hard for them to be able to jump back and forth a little bit because the I guess they could have cut to like Arondir or something. Like I don't know like what they're doing really, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And,
Which
and
I
I
think
don't.
that's something else I would have liked to. Um, I wish I was going into season two knowing what Orondir was doing. Like, are they just hanging out in that camp now? Like, what? I
Well,
mean,
we
I
know
guess
that
they
they're
know that
gonna
they're going to
try
that
and go.
colony, but
Yeah,
I guess yeah. I guess that's enough.
I probably would have preferred to have a scene where they're traveling or something,
Hmm.
and just have a maybe like a like in the Return of the King. I believe it's the Return of the King. Yeah, it is. It is. It's a Return of the King. Or no. It is the Two Towers. Where, sorry, uh, where they're traveling to Helm's Deep, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
Gimli talking with Eowyn, and they're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
talking about certain things between their different types of people. Like
Hmm.
have that where, maybe like Theo and Arondir are talking about something, or like have like a teaching moment or something.
Hmm.
Just like a small nice scene that we get finally where they can actually be a bit normal for a minute. And I think it would break up, the franticness of the Sauron that the
Yeah.
rest of the episode is. But
And then you could even tie it back, I think, if you had the epilogue of like the episode or whatever be a scene where Arondir is like teaching Theo something, right?
to shoot
And
a
that and
bow
they're
or something,
traveling.
yeah.
He's like they're practicing archery or something. And then somebody's like, a rider is coming. Somebody's coming. And then Hallbrand shows up. And he like and you have this kind of feeling of dread of like, oh shit, they don't know. And Hallbrand is
Mm.
like, all right, my people, I'm back. And now we know that he's Sauron and he's in control of these people, but nobody else there does. That would have been, I think, a nice moment of like, we would have gotten to catch up with the Southlanders one last time, while also having this kind of moment of dread of like, oh,
That'd have been
what's
cool.
gonna happen?
Yeah. Well, and the fact that we see him like in Mordor,
Yeah,
I think he's abandoned that angle, at
yeah.
least for
So
the
I
time
have no idea
being.
what his like
Yeah.
what his play is. Let's talk about Numenor because I really don't have a lot to talk about with Numenor except for
Okay.
like, uh, I thought the scene on the boat was good. I liked that. I thought that was
Mhm.
good. I really didn't give a shit about anything with the Audion. Um,
My notes for that scene are Z Z Z Z Z Z. I don't care about Aadian, even though she's the love of my life. And I also don't like the idea that her being a literal brand new apprentice who was just mopping the floors a couple of episodes ago without even seeing any of her. It's not like we even got a single scene where, oh, she's finally, being able to.
hey, look at this building I designed. Like,
Right, something, right? Like we see her drawing and scribbling stuff, but we don't see her actually interact, which I don't care. Like I wouldn't want to see it either. But
yeah.
like in the grand scheme of what's happening in Middle Earth, I wouldn't care either way. But we don't even see it, so it just feels very much like I am only here because Kemen likes me. It just makes it
Yeah.
feel dirty.
Especially with the way he's standing behind her when they show her in that
Yeah.
scene. Like it. Yeah, I didn't like that.
If he wasn't there, I'd feel a little bit better about it. But the fact that he's literally like looming over her in the background, it's pretty weird. Also, the scene the king says, he says, "I know what you've been doing in the dark of night when you thought all other eyes were asleep."
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a nod to what. So Gandalf says it in the books, but Grima says it when he's talking to
Wormtongue?
Eowyn. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
He says it to Eowyn. I don't know if it's supposed to be a callback or if they're saying that like King Palantir thinks Muriel was doing something bad on the low. I don't know. I'm leaning more towards it just being a nod.
Yeah, I
But
think it's just probably a nod.
he's just kind of kooky.
I mean, I guess I understand what the purpose of this is, right? It's she's gonna go touch the Palantir, see the vision.
I
Like,
wonder if it is going to be the vision or if it's going to be something else. But
I think it's gonna be the vision. She's going to equate it to the elves, and she's going to join Farazan on his like crusade. And it's
mhm.
gonna be kind of Elendil's house split, and he's
Yeah.
kind of also maybe a little conflicted because of everything that happened in this season. Like narratively, I understand what they're trying to do here. It just feels so tacked on in this episode,
Yeah.
and it feels like there's no. It's just like she's gonna like. I feel like if you weren't thinking far enough ahead like we do, where we're like, okay, what is the purpose of each and every scene? What is the story they're trying to tell? You're not gonna know why they showed those scenes. Right? Like she starts to look into the Palantir and then we don't ever see the rest of it. Cause I think like to the general audience who isn't like trying to figure out everything that's gonna happen before it happens, they're gonna be like, okay, I feel like I kind of got blueballed here, Like you set a promise, right, that she's gonna look into this thing, and then you don't give me resolution to it. Like, and it's not a big enough thing that it's like a cliffhanger for the season. It's just kind of like, why didn't we continue the storyline? What happened? I was
I'm fine
not a
with it
fan.
because I don't really care about it. But yeah, I can understand that. The one thing I really don't understand about this though is that in previous episodes they make it seem like the king is like a recluse locked in this tower, specifically for believing in the old ways, for being like an elf
Mm-hmm.
lover, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now, even before he's even dead, they're like revering him, and they're like, we're gonna build, which is a very Numenor thing to build
Mm-hmm.
these uh houses of the dead that are just like more lavish than the people who are literally even like in the slums, right? Like you could be spending all of this time and effort to help those people, but you're building these lavish like
Yeah.
tombs, right? Um for no one to even be in them either, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like besides a dead person.
Mm-hmm.
Um and then like it's so weird to have that when episodes ago, let's say Palantir went out in the street, like he snuck out because he's an old crafty man.
Yeah.
They would have like been a crowd would gather around him and they'd all be shouting at him, calling him an elf lover, and then locking
Yeah.
him back up, right?
I think it's kind
So
of like I honestly, I think this is very realistic. The idea of like when somebody's on their deathbed, even if everybody hates them, there's this kind of social pressure to be like, okay, well, be nice to the dead person, you know?
yeah, no,
Like you see that a lot in real life, I think, as
I
well.
get that for sure, but the problem that I then get with it, right, is that, so
Mm.
like they're referring to him as the king and like they're referring to her as regent like the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
What it then makes it messes with how I think about it logically though, because like if there was a flashback scene to know whether or not he became loopy before being deposed in like a little bit, like
Mm-hmm.
obviously part of it's old age, right? But I don't
Yeah.
know that he wasn't, because he specifically states himself he's looked into too much. He doesn't know what is real, what is to come, or what has been, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would have been nice to know a little bit more because they make it so vague. They're just like, oh, because he believed in the old ways. But to me, it more feels like they're, oh, we're respecting him. We just deposed him because, we still have respect for him, but he's just loopy. So we think he's like kind of unfit to rule
Mm-hmm.
rather than, oh, we hate that you're an elf lover. But
Yeah.
if he's just like loopy, if he's just more loopy because of age, and I mean, if he was locked in his tower and wasn't deranged, he'd probably be looking at the plants here a lot more because he's just
Yeah.
like, there's nothing
Yeah.
else to do, or
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
stressing out about his kingdom, and then becomes loopy with that and old age and stuff. I think it just made me question like, wait, okay, so like he's the king, but like it just made it really weird to me. It was something that on my second watch, I didn't really think about the first watch or second watch through. I was just like, wait, what is going on here, dude?
Yeah.
Like, but I get that it's supposed to show that Farazan is seeing that the king's dying and there's a shift
In power.
in power, and then now he doesn't know, but we know as viewers that Muriel's also blind.
Mm. He's gonna
So
find out real soon. It doesn't look like they're hiding it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, it seemed like they were going to, didn't it? Like they were going to try
they
to.
were going to try maybe, but then she walks out onto the top of the
Right.
boat with the blindfold on. So
Yeah.
I,
That's
I
what was weird.
I think it was kind of a thing of like Elendil going, "Hey, you don't need to hide it and do this on your own. I'm with you." You know, like instead
Mm.
of going through this big deception, this big like that'll leave you lonely in the end. Let's just face it together. Um, which I think works, and I think that's my favorite part of the Numenor scenes in this episode. And it starts a
Yeah.
trend that we'll talk about through the rest of this episode. And I was reading interviews where the showrunners were talking about this, talking about how, like this show is about the rings of power, they wanted to do what they call like ring storytelling. Uh just kind of like cyclical storytelling almost, where it comes back around to itself. And they said like, you're going to notice a lot of things in this finale repeat from the first couple episodes or from earlier in the season. Watch that as the show goes on to continue happening throughout the rest of the seasons. But like, you get the scene without any explanation. Like it took me to my second watch through to realize what was happening. Where Elendil is talking to Miriel and he's talking about why he brought Galadriel onto the boat, and he says Elendil doesn't just mean he who loves the stars or whatever. And I was like, what are you talking about again? And then I remembered there was a scene way earlier in the show about how
Yeah, it's a throwback.
yeah, about how Elendil means like elf friend or whatever.
Mhm.
And so you see that a lot. There's a lot of lines in this episode that are calling back to lines or events from earlier in the season. And they said that was something that they really wanted to do and they really want to continue doing as the seasons go on. I really have nothing else about the Numenor storyline.
Yeah, really the last thing is I do like the relationship between them. I
Mhm.
believe it. It's a belief, like they have good chemistry as actors.
I'm glad it didn't get romantic
Um
at the end. I was so worried during
no,
that scene.
yeah.
I
I
was
did
like,
not want
please
that to
don't.
happen
Please
either.
don't.
Like I think her like hugging him or something
Yeah.
would be fine, but if they kissed, I'd be like, "Really,
Yeah.
bruh? Ain't no
I was
way."
worried, dude. I was
I was going to be
scared.
mad. But okay. She's been blind for 2 episodes, and we've
Mhm.
already had 2 times where it's her being like, what's happening?" And then Elendil's just
Yeah.
like too emotional to say anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
To have those, I think for it to happen twice is fine, but to have it 2 episodes in a row, it's like, come on,
Yeah.
dude, this can't continue. Like,
Yeah.
both in a, yo, you're fucking up type of way, and also in a, this is a boring trope type of way. Like, you've already done it twice. Please
Yeah, you can't
stop.
keep doing this. Please don't do this 6 times an episode in season 2.
Like,
You
I
know,
get he's
like
literally in the middle of grieving his son. Like, it just happened in the first episode, and she's saying we're gonna return, and so he's grieving. But then, like, to find that the king is dead, and I could get he's like grieving for her a bit and doesn't know how to tell her. But it's, come on, bro. At least say like, "I'm so sorry," or like, "My queen, I'm sorry," or something along those lines. Like, say something, dude. The
and
silence trope, I'm already over it.
and that's where I think saving their return to Numenor for season 2 would have helped a little bit as well.
Yeah.
You know, even if that scene right there of him, like, at least you would have had 2 years in between, you know, not a week.
Yeah.
Um, let's move over to the Harfoot slash Stranger storyline, or shall I call him Gandalf? I'm still Copium. They don't say that he's Gandalf. In all the interviews, they're still being cagey about who he is. Um, it's I, it's pretty Gandalf.
He's
Uh,
1000%
yeah,
Gandalf.
yeah. The big thing in this episode is a magic fight between him and the 3 cultists who have names now.
Yeah.
In the subtitles, 2 of them are named. The third one is not named in the subtitle, but I got
They
it in the
are.
credits.
Yeah.
The Nomad, the Ascetic, and the Dweller.
Yeah, the Dweller, Slim Shady.
Yeah.
So like I really like the CGI. The problem that I have is that when they are talking and they don't have the filter on their voice, I
Uh-huh.
hate how the lines are delivered. Like I hate it. It's bad.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
I don't think that's bad acting. I think it's direction. I think they're
Right.
like that's definitely somebody telling somebody else to do a certain voice and it really not working.
But then once the filter comes on and they're doing the
Yeah.
exact same lines in like the exact same way, I love it so much more. Like it
Yeah.
works, it clicks, but it's like as if they didn't know what parts they were gonna have the filter on. Maybe were gonna have it the whole time. I don't know, but yeah, it's definitely a direction thing. But the CGI in this, bro, is so
good.
cool, and the
It's really
sound
good.
effects amazing. I always love the really almost like warbly type noises in films.
I love at the beginning we get a cold open where they are like, "You are Lord Sauron," and I was like, "Okay, cool. So he's not Sauron." Like,
Yeah.
dude, the magic in this episode is just so cool. I was scared at one point because they started doing the Gandalf Saruman thing, and I was like, "No, please no."
Oh, like
Please,
how they
God,
were
no.
like moving him around with the
Yeah,
staff.
yeah. She had his staff out, and he was like getting spun through the air. I was like, "Dear God, no, please, please, no."
Yeah.
Dude, she's a badass. I really hope they're not implying that she's like dead, but that they've just been like kind of forced back or whatever. Like they'll come back.
Right. The fact
Be-
that they even have names makes me feel like they're more than just season 1 characters.
Yeah.
But what's
Like,
weird to me
They'll
is
go
like
to Rune and find them there, you know?
right. So to me it would be like, okay, they're probably, I don't think that they're like the Nazgul or anything because
But they have that wraith kind
right.
of.
They have like wraith qualities, it looks like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which I have a harebrained theory on as far as like what ends up happening with like the story of the stranger,
Mhm.
but yeah, it makes me feel like Because I really like them when they're not just talking in plain speak. I would be fine with
Yeah.
them coming back.
And Slim Shady's shape-shifting abilities freak me the fuck out, dude.
Yeah, they're
Every
really
time
cool.
she just bends in on herself and then whoosh, like, oh god. Um, it's a cool magic fight. I can't believe I did not see Sadik getting got coming, but it wasn't even a
Dude,
thought in my
yeah.
head that he was gonna die. And I was
Me,
like,
same.
I was so sad when it happened.
Same. I thought, oh my god, he's dead for a split second, right?
Yeah.
And then when he stabbed her in the foot, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, he's fine. He's fine.
Mhm.
And then I wasn't I was taken aback by the fact that he's like, I just want to watch the sun rise
Yeah.
type thing. Oh
And
my god.
when
He said I'm
when
going off trail.
he says,
It's
I'm
so
about to go a
sad.
wandering off trail. And I was
Oh,
like, oh no.
yeah. I didn't think
Uh
I would be so sad at Sadok dying, dude. But it
yeah,
got me.
and then just jumping ahead a little bit, I really like the scene at the very end of that storyline where we'll jump back to because there's still stuff to talk about here, but I like the scene where they're like, oh, I miss Sadik. And the one Harfoot is like, he's still here. And I thought that was
He's
very
still with us.
yeah. Um but dude, when Gandalf stood up, dude,
Oh yeah, when he has the staff
I
finally.
am good. First he says, and I wrote this line down because it's bad fucking ass. From
Yeah.
shadow you came, to shadow I bid you return. Like, oh, dude.
Then he hits him with the I am Groot.
Dude, he hits him
I mean,
with
sorry.
the
I
Groot.
am good.
Good. Oh, dude, like, I
That
was
was great.
kind
Banger
of
line.
worried. I was kind of worried, like, okay, he's starting to talk a lot. Like, is this gonna feel weird? But nah, dude, he does a great job. I'm glad that he's talking. I think the kind of silent traveler trope has lasted about just as long as I needed it to.
Yeah.
And I
It didn't overstay.
didn't overstay its welcome. And I'm glad that we get some badass lines from now. Some very some very very wise lines. Some
Well,
would
and
say.
I also like the reason as to how he gets to
Yeah.
it. It's not just, oh, off screen they were together for a long time and he learned to talk or whatever, right?
Yeah.
It's, oh, they literally like opened his mind up a bit and
Yeah.
it helped him to develop faster, so he was able to talk more once he wasn't like under their control or anything.
And he turns them into moths, right? Like, or
That's
like
what it
he
looks like,
disperses them
yeah.
into moths. So like my harebrained theory is that we now have cameos from them in the Two Towers.
No way. It would be okay. So I mean, honestly, that might even like fit with like what my theory is. I don't know.
Yeah.
What is there anything else you want to talk about with this?
I was just gonna talk about the ending of the scene, just how sad it made me when
Yeah.
Poppy was like saying goodbye. Dude, her dad killed me in that
Yeah.
goodbye. I was just, and then like, and Poppy's goodbye was so realistic.
Mhm.
Like the okay, bye, and then coming back at the very end, and oh, dude, I did not expect to be so sad to lose
got
these
me.
characters,
Yeah.
and I don't think we see them for like seasons now. Like I'm sure they'll come back before the end of the show. but-
oh, like the people who stayed. Right?
Yeah. I don't
I could
think
see there being like a throwaway scene where they're in some place and they're seeing more of the land in which they typically travel to has been affected in some way.
Yeah, I could see that, or I could see them running into the other storylines, and we see them through the other storylines' points of view, kind of.
Mhm.
You know, but I don't think we're gonna see a ton of their storyline them going forward. So I'm kind of like, okay, we'll see you guys at like the end of the show, probably. Like they'll come back from Rune, and like they'll be like, oh, our friends settled way far to the west. Yeah, to the west. I wonder. Let's go check out where they are. And they get to the Shire or whatever. Like, you know, like
Yeah.
But I was just. She also looks a lot like Frodo in this scene. Poppy. I don't know. I just the way they shoot her
that's on purpose. You
on
know,
purpose.
Like,
It works really
she's
well.
supposed to look like a Baggins.
And when she's like, "You'll be bold." Oh,
I liked that line too. Yeah.
um,
I thought if anyone was gonna die in that scene, it was gonna be her.
yeah. I thought it was gonna be Marigold.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then just like they're off to Rune. I think he's really channeling Ian McKellen at the end without just like trying to copy him, which I
Yeah.
think it does very well. Um, and of course we get the fucking when in doubt, Eleanor Brandyfoot, always follow your nose.
Yep.
Which
Yep.
it's a good line to use because I had to go, is that a line from the movies, Jason? Because you were freaking out because I'd forgotten about that line.
I was
Um,
laughing, dude.
yeah, you,
I said always follow your nose before he even
yeah,
gave the
yeah,
line.
yeah,
Cuz I just knew. I just knew. I was like laughing cuz it was a good scene. I like how they did it.
yeah,
If it was done poorly, I would have been like, "Oh my god, always
yeah.
follow your nose." Like
No, it's
but
done
no,
very well.
it was great. Um
What's your big
I really
theory?
liked the reveal, and I like that it's a line that's not like similar to, I think it was Phil Games said, like it's not a line that's so on the nose that you're like, ugh, like, oh
He
my
didn't
god,
say you shall not pass to the
just
cultists,
beat
you
me
know,
over the head
like,
with the fact that he's
yeah.
Gandalf.
The fact that
It was
I
nice
missed it was good, you know, like that means
for
it's a good
sure,
choice, you know.
for sure.
Um, oh, you said you have a theory about Rune and the
Okay, dude.
future of the stranger. Can you just give a little bit? I know there's very little written about Rune
Yeah.
in the text, but just for the podcast listeners, some like
So yeah,
background with what Rune
so
is.
Rune is like where Mordor is on the map. It's to the north and the east. And there's the Sea of Rune up there. And Rune is where the Easterlings come from. You know how like in the movie where like Frodo and Sam they're about to go into the Black Gate and there's those dudes
Hmm.
marching,
Hmm.
and they end up being the ones who have the big elephants, the elephants, right?
Oh, okay, yeah,
Though that's where those people are from, is Rune, the
okay.
Easterlings, right?
Hmm.
And so it's east of anywhere in any of the movies, right? Like if you went from where the Black Gate was and you like followed the mountains, went to the east and then went north a little bit, that's where it is. One of the people that we thought might the stranger might be is a blue wizard, right?
Hmm.
And I was talking about how, the Blue Wizards, there's two different versions that Tolkien gave as to what they end up doing.
Hmm.
Because it is told they go into the east. But what they do in the east, one theory is that, they end up kind of trying to fight against Sauron, because in Rune, they're just pretty much known in the Easterlings since the days of Morgoth. The people that lived there like were literally just like servants of evil, right?
Hmm.
Like whether or not, like, not like all the people, but the people in charge, and they just have to do what they have to do, right? It's typically how it's portrayed. And so one is that they tried to stop them, and they're like thwarting what they can to make it so that Sauron doesn't become all powerful in the east, right? Then the other idea is that either he corrupted them, or they kind of like were just corrupt on their own, kind of in more of a Saruman way, where they wanted power themselves.
Hmm.
So what I could see is that, because all of the Istari, so the Blue Wizards, Radagast, Saruman, Gandalf, they're all supposed to arrive in the Third Age, but in one of the versions, Blue Wizards got there a bit earlier. Like they didn't go with them at the same time.
Hmm.
But I believe it's still supposed to be in the Third Age. Well, I could see, because they're saying, okay, Gandalf came here earlier, that the Blue Wizards are already in Rune and they're already evil. I could see him
Ooh.
fighting off in the people in Rune, because to me it's like, Rune, they worship Morgoth, and then like by extension Sauron. I could see it being where, in order to have these super strong mystics, having some type of bad Astari there that really makes it
Hmm.
so that they can do all these crazy things, because they do crazy things. She's like shooting fire out of her hands and blowing up all their carts
Fucking
and shape
Sarumaning him.
shifting.
Like
Like,
maybe
yeah,
that's where they got maybe the like that staff is magical and they got the magic staff from an Astari, like one of the blue
right.
wizards.
That's what I'm thinking. Is
You
like
know, like
maybe the blue wizards are there, and again Gandalf ends up fighting the blue wizards, and that's why in the Hobbit movies, Bilbo asks, like, are there any other wizards, or like, are they powerful, or are they more like
yeah.
you? And he's like, hey, what? But yeah, he says there's the two blue wizards, and he's like, oh, what are their names? And he's like, I can't quite remember. And I'm thinking maybe it's because he knows that they are the blue wizards and that they were there, but he can't remember their names because they were like evil
Yeah.
when he saw them, and he doesn't
Yeah.
remember what their names were when he was in Valinor.
Yeah. I would dig the hell out of that. I think that's a good way to give an antagonist to the Stranger storyline
To
while
give him conflict,
continuing.
yeah.
Yeah, because they did say like that, hey, this Harfoot storyline is gonna be kind of sideways, you know, from the rest of the storyline in a way. It's not gonna be super connected to what's happening in the main storyline. So I could see that being okay, we need another antagonist for that storyline because he's not going to
Yeah.
be doing the Sauron stuff. It keeps Gandalf out of the events, the main events of the Second Age, right? It gives him his own story to go and do.
Yeah.
I really like that. I really hope that you're right.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Speaking of Sauron,
Now it's time.
dude, Sauron is so hot. I'm so happy. I'm so happy,
Oh,
dude.
no.
When
He's
he's
hot.
walking when he's walking into Mordor at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I love that shot.
I'm like, oh, dude, looks so good. So we get to reveal this episode, obviously, as I have been saying.
Dude, and
2
can I
weeks
say,
now.
I feel like Charlie Vickers has a smirk on his face this entire episode. Even when he's like laying there bleeding out type thing, I feel like he has a smirk on his face.
I wrote down as a note that Hallbrand changes as soon as he meets Celebrimbor. You can see in Sauron when he meets Celebrimbor, you can see in his face him go, I've won. Like he's like, I can do this now. Because his big like
Yeah.
they talk about his big conflict over the season has been like, am I gonna get a chance to do what I want to do? Like, and he explains in this episode that his thing, and I really like his explanation. He's like, I'm not evil. I want to heal Middle Earth, and my version of healing Middle Earth is complete and total order by me controlling and ruling over everybody, which we know is fucked up, but it gives him like some depth to have him have this kind of really fucked
It's like
up
his
morality,
recompense.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think you can see when he meets Celebrimbor, his kind of like, he's like, okay, I've done it. Like I can, the rest of the episode onward, he has this passion that has been missing from the character this entire time. And he's like excited for the first time. And I think it's because he's like, I'm here, I'm at the moment. I finally made it here. I know what I have to do. And I'm going to have this girl come and stand by my side and do this. Like, not in a romantic way, you freaks, but in a, she's very powerful and together we could rule the world,
Yeah.
type way. And I really like the way that Hallbrand is played in this episode. I love, yeah, go ahead.
What's funny, and I just thought of this, it's very, very tangential, but like in the video games, the Shadow of War video games,
Mm-hmm.
they kind of do like a similar thing where they were like, what if Shelob is like Sauron and can like shapeshift or whatever? Like she's an elf or like a
Yeah.
a Maiar type character. And like so like she has a fair form, but then she can also transform into a spider, right? And the idea is that both Sauron and her are just like in their fair form and like they're working together, but then she ends up betraying him or something, right?
Mm.
So it very much reminded me of like, because you get these certain flashback scenes where it's like Shelob, and she's a mommy for sure, and Sauron are plotting.
Okay.
But yeah, anyways, what were you saying?
Oh no, I have a ton of notes, so I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna kind of go through my notes chronologically a little bit.
Yeah, that's how I have mine.
So like starting with Galadriel and Hallbrand, returning, and I really love this conversation that Galadriel has with Elrond, because I think this is the first time. I mean, really, they haven't seen each other much. They've only been in the first episode together, but you see in this episode them being like, you can see the age that she has on him. Like she kind of takes a mentorish role in their conversation and urges him to keep going when he's given up hope, and he kind of is looking up to her and seeking her
Yeah, he's like, what do we
encouragement,
do?
seeking her to answer this question. Which
Yeah.
I think, like, before, they played very much as equals in the first episode, and I like that now that they're in this very dark place. You can see kind of the youth in Elrond come out a little bit.
And I believe their relationship much more in this episode than I did in the first episode, because it
Yeah.
very much felt like she's very cold. Like, yeah, they're friends, but at this point, she's just so dead set on killing Sauron and finding Sauron that she kind of just pushes him to the side, right? So it makes more sense as to why, because he ends up apologizing, like, I made a mistake that I won't make again, blah, blah, blah. Also, I do want to say, I'm so glad we're seeing more than just the one fucking room in Aragian.
Yeah, dude, we see a lot
It
of
looks
Aragian.
so nice. It's so cool.
I can't wait.
Forge, it has very, forge qualities,
Yeah,
but while also having very elven qualities as well, with the leaves and the very natural flowing shapes and stuff. I
Mhm.
thought it was so cool. Especially where like they mount where they end up making the rings, and like it like ends up pooling and circling down and stuff. Looks very leaf-like and very
Yeah.
natural. That was really cool. But yeah, it's crazy how menacing, like as someone who knows what's happening, right? Like at this point, I'm like 1,000% thinking that Halbrand is Sauron, and when Celebrimbor's like, "Reveal yourself,"
dude.
dude, it's insane how menacing they make Halbrand, going from last episode where he's like the king of the Southlanders and he did all these great things, to major Sauron flags. Like, oh my god. And I think it's believable as well how, because I know there's gonna be people who are hating, saying, I don't like how Celebrimbor is just like an idiot, he can't figure out anything on his own. To me, it makes sense that Celebrimbor would not think to amplify this metal with what he would deem worse metals, right?
I could
Even though it's
see
pure silver and gold, right? He's thinking of them as lesser.
I
So
could
it
definitely
makes
see it as
sense.
like a elven thing, right? Like,
Right. He's always, well, and not even just an elven thing, but an elven lord, right? Like, he's always been able to get vast quantities of whatever he wants. He's literally the Lord of Aragian, right? Like, it's well, in Aragian, in this, they make it seem like Aragian is one city. It's not. It's like a kingdom.
Yeah.
And
I'm
that's
sure we'll
just like
see
the
more of
main
it.
city, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we will.
You don't think so?
Yeah, I think they more made it seem like it was like, because he said disband the city.
You're right.
I don't know. I think it's.
One city
I'm
in this.
fine with it, but yeah, it's. He's got wealth, is what I'm trying to say. And also in that scene, dude, when Halbrand passes him back the piece of mithril, and he's like, oh, that's like very interesting, right? Like you could enhance it, right? And he says, call it a gift, and I love it because it's a nod to. Like, what his name normally would be when they'd have these conversations is Anatar, the Lord of Gifts. Yeah. And I was like, okay, like, I might have had, like, 99.99999% chance he's Sauron. When he said, call it a gift, okay, now it's 100%.
Yeah.
Like, there was no going back at that point.
And I think the show isn't trying to hide it after that point.
For sure.
I like that. I theorize that that's the closest they can get to Anatar. I think legally. I think saying call it a gift, I really don't think they can use the name Anatar. Maybe they'll be able to in the future. Maybe they'll get some more rights for season 2. Because the actor definitely implied in Charlie Vickers said in an interview that there are stories from the Silmarillion that we're going to get to see about Sauron in season 2, which implies that they have more rights now, which I would not be surprised at all if, with the rights being under new management, Embracer Group was like, yeah, fuck it, make the show. you know?
Right, yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. Like, why would they hamstring this thing? Yeah.
Yeah, so, but I do like the call it a gift. And I thought it was fun when we were watching it, because you and I, when he goes, call it, you and I go, oh, and then he goes, a gift. And we're like, oh, God.
yeah. I also like that they don't go straight to saying, yo, let's make some rings.
No, it's so
something
good.
else that's circular, right? Like, and giving a reason as to why it should be circular, right? That it reflects off itself and it enhances every time, right? But remember, it's circular. It's not ring shaped. It's
No, it's
circular,
circular.
right? I liked that.
Dude,
Um,
I want to stay on this scene with Halbrand and Celebrimbor for a moment because
okay, yeah.
I think they show just perfectly that Sauron in this we see Sauron as a master of like manipulation. You know, he immediately plays into Celebrimbor's desire for fame and notoriety, which was brought up when he was talking about how he just wanted to create something that like rivaled Feanor,
Yeah.
or lived up to Feanor. He brings that up way earlier in the season, and he's like, is this the workshop of the most famous Celebrimbor? You know, like immediately he's like, the master I apprenticed to used to speak to the wonders of your craft, which you said could be a reference. You said that isn't one of the what's the people above the Maiar?
There's the Valar.
The Valar. Isn't one of the Valar like Halbrand's or Sauron's like mentor of how to
Yeah. So
smithing?
like, yeah. So Maiar are typically like subservient to a specific Valar.
Yeah.
And he is to Aule, who's the craftsman who makes the dwarves.
Yeah.
And that's why you see like, you know, he's such a good smith. He makes that like crazy sword with like this shoddy little shop in Numenor or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he is a very, very good craftsman, and it makes sense that he would, you know, this is the best workshop he's probably seen.
Yeah.
Since he trained with Aule, you know, like I believe that he really is. When he's looking around in wonder, he actually is. You know, he's feeling a bit at home in a way, right?
Yeah.
Or his old home, right?
Yeah. I really love like he has an in character reason for everything. Like when you think about the fact that everything that he's saying is bullshit, he's like, back where I'm from, I'm used to putting together these metals because not a lot of stuff grows in the south. Or
like they're not lies, but they are, right?
Yeah, there's not a lot of metals in the Southland, so we have to combine them, you know? And I'm like,
but that's what would be true if he was
like
literally working for Morgoth and like he has orcs bringing him materials. Like, that would be true still. And even when he gets like, let's say like he got like immediately killed by Adar, right? And then he was working in the Southlands or something as a smith or something like that. Yeah, he would learn that skill there as well.
It's very good. I love like the next scene with Gil, where they go to Gil-galad and they're like, "We're gonna make a crown, dude. It's gonna be awesome."
We're gonna put it on your head.
I really love Gil-galad in this episode.
I'm not in love with him. I want to hear why you like him.
I really love him because they're like, "Dude, we're gonna make this really powerful crown. It's gonna save us all. We're gonna put it on your head." And he's like, "You're gonna what?" He's like, "You want to make one object of ultimate power and give it to a single person? Are you fucking insane?" Like, I love the
I guess I didn't read it as in him saying that, oh, just one person, right?
I'm pretty sure
I didn't feel like he had the I don't think he had, well, he did say that, right? But then when they say no, not just one person, it doesn't feel like he objects to it because it's still just the one person. It feels like he's just like, I don't know if this will work.
I read it more as he is absolutely still like, I think they're trying to intentionally draw a comparison between him and Sauron.
Yeah.
Like Sauron's ambition to have the one object that makes him ultimate ruler, and how
I wish it would have been done a bit more then, because I did not pull from that. That.
I wish Gil-galad had been in more of the season. I'm sure we'll see more of him because I really like
he's a badass.
And he's a badass. And I think that they are setting the seeds to make him a really important character. I think that it's very intentional that they're like, hey, this dude is given a similar opportunity to what Sauron desires and turns it down. You know?
Yeah.
I think that's intentional for sure. And I also
and he's rightful to be suspect of what is happening, right?
He immediately
I just wish we could have seen the tree.
Who's fucking telling you this? He's like, did the fucking Southlander say this? Like, immediately, I feel like Gil-galad is sus of Halbrand, and I love it. I really liked Gil-galad, and there are things that Gil-galad does that annoy me, but I think those things are symptoms of a bigger, like, of the fading thing. Like, he does those things because the fading plot exists, and I don't like the fading plot, but everything that he does unrelated to that, I really enjoy.
Well, and if you think about it logically, it makes sense. And that's something that I wrote down, is that, like, I'm not in love with him in this episode, but, like, he's definitely rightful to suspect Halbrand.
Yeah.
Like, just regardless of if he's Sauron or not, right?
Yeah.
But not seeing how the tree has progressed, I just have to like believe what he's saying, and I'm
Hmm.
not feeling what he's saying, right? Like the
Yeah.
actor does a good job, and I like how he actually pronounces shit correctly. By the way, he's a goat, but
Yeah.
like, uh, I think that it's just I'm not ever feeling what he's saying because a lot of times he's been like very secretive, right?
Yeah.
And a little bit manipulative in his own way. Like,
Hmm.
and I like that Elrond. Like, there's a scene late, like literally directly after, where he's like, "Shut it down. I don't want to see it. Like, just shut it down." And then he
Yeah.
leaves, right?
Yeah.
And then Elrond is like, "Please, give me 3 months. I'm owed at least that."
Hmm.
I don't like how he delivers the line. He's
Yeah.
like, "You are owed nothing." Like
Yeah.
it seems a bit random.
Yeah.
Uh, but I like how Elrond then uses his own words against him, just throws it
That
back in his face, and
that
it's
that
another
ring
callback, another
storytelling,
ring
right? You
story.
know?
Yeah. When Gilgalad is saying, and no hope is meager, right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of a checkmate, right? Because
Yeah.
if he doesn't go with it, then he basically is conceding that he only said that in order to manipulate Elrond into giving up the secret.
Yeah.
In which case it's like, okay, this is like a doomed effort anyway, because like this guy was manipulating me from the start, right?
Yeah.
Like he didn't
Yeah.
actually believe in this hope. Then why should I, like from the start he didn't believe in the
Yeah.
hope. It was just manipulation. And then it would make more sense. And so I like that scene in that way. I just don't like how he delivers the line. I get that he would be like in grief and in incredible stress that his entire race is dying and all this stuff, but it just felt very like, I'm going to attack the one man who's been trying to save this the whole time. Like, you are owed nothing. You stole fizzy lifting drinks. Like, I was like, oh my god, dude, chill, Willy Wonka. Like, my god.
Chill, Willy Wonka. Uh, I really love the scene, that scene. Not only for that reason, I'm sure you've seen this. It's all over the internet. The image of Celebrimbor with the chain leading from him while they're pitching this to Gilgalad. The symbolism in that room with the four of them there talking. That there's the shadow of a chain leading away from Celebrimbor. Um, I
Oh no, I
posted
haven't
it in
seen
our
it.
second breakfast chat.
Let me
Uh,
see it. I have not seen it.
it looks really good. Um, like it's
Mm.
way too intentional. Like there's no way that was a coincidence.
Yeah.
Like that. It's very very well done. And I love how you see in that episode, in that scene, that Celebrimbor is already super taken in by this power. He's like, we are on the verge of greatness, like a power
Yeah.
untold or whatever, like the power of the unseeing world. And Galadriel's like, what did you just say? you know,
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
Galadriel in this episode
Well,
as
okay.
well.
That scene, I like that line, and I like how
Yeah.
that's how she's immediately suspect of that, where he's saying not of the flesh but over flesh,
Yeah.
of the power
Yeah.
of the unseen world. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
But like, it is really on the nose and also an unknowable thing, I feel like.
Uh-huh.
Uh Unless Halbrand knew what was happening, and then like uh, that we could go into more when we're talking about like what Halbrand does throughout the entirety
Mhm.
of the show, and like what those things could be with the lens of Sauron. But like
Mhm.
to say, oh, it was just the key that unlocked the dam, and then Galadriel's like, hey, yo, what? Because it's like we know as the viewers that's what happened, but no, there's no way Galadriel would know. She never even seen the key or the sword, the keyblade. Like she didn't
Yeah.
even
The
know what the
Keyblade.
artifact was. There was no time for them to really discuss. Like I guess Theo could say, oh, they wanted the sword and they were going to use it or something, right? But to
Mhm.
know that it like then unlocked a dam, I don't think anyone would have like put two and two together. And then
Yeah.
also on top of that, all the water goes underground, so you wouldn't have even known. Like there's just so many like that was like weird. And I get why it's more of just like oh, the audience knows or whatever.
Mhm.
And then double down with the not of the flesh but over flesh, right?
Yeah.
That part was a little weird, but yeah. I liked that scene a lot. And it shows that, Celebrimbor is just very ambitious.
Mhm.
And I like Celebrimbor way more in this episode than I did before. Because even before Halbrand shows up and could be like, corrupting him and everything, manipulating him, he's still like grasping for like anything that he can do
Mhm.
in order to save. Like he's like, not only and if you put yourself in his shoes, he wants to be of equal or greater than Feanor, who's his grandfather, and then he can't even protect the elves, right? Like you're a double failure. You're not reaching the heights that you want, which is a failure personally, but then you're also failing like your entire people by not being able to figure this out. So I get why he would want to like put his whole heart and soul into this and not really think about the consequences. Makes it feel more like, oh, he, because in the writing it much more, because this whole idea to preserve the elves is not canon. So in
Yeah.
the writing, it very much seems like he just got duped. You know, he was just
Yeah.
blinded by his ambition. There was no reason for him other than that. Oh, you know, like the reasoning that there is that the elves that are in Aragian, they're wanting to make Middle Earth be as beautiful as Valinor.
Mhm.
And they're like, you know, we can create, it's a very prideful thing. They're like, we can create it. We can make our own heaven on earth, right? And that ends up being the reason that they really don't question Anatar when he shows up and he's like, yo, I can show you guys how to make these really, really cool rings. Like, they're very powerful.
Yeah.
There's all these things you can do with them and like teaching them to perfect it and everything.
Mhm.
So I like it a bit more. It adds more depth to why. Because I think if you did Celebrimbor exactly like how he is in the books, he would seem very shallow and stupid. Especially because he's a lord. Like, you would think he would look into
Yeah.
it a bit more. Very much like how people hate how Isildur is in the movies, the Peter Jackson movies, where everyone knows that it's evil. It's like very clearly evil. And he's just like, no.
It's
Right?
mine. Yeah.
It would feel a lot like that, I think. And obviously, like, even that Isildur stuff is not what actually happens in the book. Like, they don't know that the ring, like, they know that like the ring can command the other rings, but they don't know that it would keep Sauron alive, right? Like,
Mhm.
they would have no reason to think that. But anyway, yeah, we talked about that before, but I really like that. I hated the whole, oh, the elves are dying, but it gives Celebrimbor even more of a reason to really want to make these, at least the elven rings, right? But it does open a bit of a can of worms as far as, okay, well, how are the other rings going to get made? I have 3 theories as to what could happen. I don't know if you wanted to talk about any of those, like the scenes
Let's
that we're
talk
talking about a bit
about
more.
let's talk. Let's get through the rest of this episode. Let's save
Okay.
a lot of theorizing about what's going to happen in the future for next week.
Okay.
Because this is kind of my plan right now in my head. Is I think let's get through the rest of this episode. Next week we'll talk about theorizing what might happen in the future, and
True.
then later on, because you and I have talked about maybe doing a thing where we watch all 8 episodes as like a Twitch watch party
On live stream.
and
Yeah.
maybe after we do that, we can have this discussion that we were talking about like Sauron's movements throughout the whole season. Because I think I'd want to watch the whole show again before I try and really parse what Sauron is doing during it.
Right.
So I definitely think that's a discussion that I might want to wait to have until after we've rewatched the whole thing.
The Sauron special.
The Sauron special after we do our 9-hour watch party of The Rings of Power. I really like the scene between Sauron and Galadriel where he's like, you have done so much, like you saved me. I'll never forget what you've done, and I'll see to it that no one else does either. It's so menacing.
Yeah.
I also think it's interesting. He kind of talks about how like when they're coming up with the plan to like get the metals to mix, he's like, the metals shouldn't be forced to join, but rather drawn or coaxed together, which I think is some very, very kind of very Sauron shit. I don't know.
It's kind of meta, yeah.
A little meta, you know.
He's not forcing them to serve him. He's coaxing them into it, you know.
And then I think like the half of the rest of my quote or my notes are about this next one scene, which is the Sauron reveal.
We're literally right before that, you know, like
Yeah.
she asked the one elf dude, "Hey, give me anything you have on
Yeah.
the Southlands or whatever," right? And then he comes back into the workshop and he's like, "My lady, here's the thing you asked for. I'm shaking it, shaky, shaky, right here." Like, it's pretty ridiculous. I get why, but I
Yeah.
remember just being like, "What?"
Dude, shut the fuck up.
Like, I get Halbrand's supposed to see, but you can do this another way, my guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I think it's interesting that he goes, "We need two objects." I am curious about whether like
he would want to give them
give
to
one to her
Gil
and
Galad and then one to
mm,
Celebrimbor, probably,
yeah.
or
I
her.
was almost wondering if he was trying to make these items of power to give one to her and keep one for himself.
No,
Because clearly
I
he
think he
doesn't
would
stick
want
around
them.
for the rest of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he had other plans before he was forced to leave.
I would assume that, you know, he would build those. He would end up building the Master Ring. Like, I think at this point, he would already know what he wants to do.
Okay.
Like, he would have an inkling, like, okay, there's
Yeah.
these rings of power. I can use them to control their minds, right?
Mm-hmm.
To dominate them.
Mm-hmm.
Because he literally is. I really like how. I mean, we can get into the scene because I don't really have anything
Yeah.
else to say besides, you know, oh my god, dude, the scene where he is like, "I told you I found it on a dead man."
Dude.
Oh my
And then
god.
he has my favorite line in the whole show. And really, this line, I think, is going up there. Like, we talk about when we have guests on the show, what's your favorite like line in the movies? This line is going up there for me. "I have been awake since before the breaking of the first silence. In that time, I have had many names." Oh,
Yeah.
dude. What a cold fucking line, dude.
It's dope.
It's
It's
so
dope.
good. I have an interesting note on like so the whole mind vision thing starts the mind domination that he's doing, and we see Finrod again. And I have a note about this because unlike movies, like we talked about this just like one on one at one point, or we might have been in like the Discord with people. How the last scene of Gandalf in Return of the King was one of the first scenes that Ian McKellen shot.
Hmm.
Like, that's interesting. This scene with Finrod, unlike movies, television shows don't do that. They do shoot in order most of the time. They shoot episode blocks. So Finrod's actor had to come back to New Zealand to shoot the scenes in this finale.
Huh.
He came to shoot the scenes in episode 1, and then he left New Zealand, and then he came back like a year later to shoot his scenes in this episode. Because that's how shooting television works.
That's funny.
But I love the way Galadriel is enthralled by him.
Yeah.
Like the way she's looking up at Finrod. Like the actress
If she
does
just
a
knew
very good
immediately, it
job.
wouldn't work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, she
So
knows. She's like, "Get out of my head." And he's
Yeah.
like, "Look at me." And then that's when he really has her.
Yeah.
And you could tell she fights. I like how it's not so black or white, where she's just
Mhm.
completely enthralled and then, you know, oh, at the very last second she breaks out. Or,
Yeah.
oh, she knows the whole time and she's fighting the whole time and she breaks out. I think it's like, it's very a bit of both. And I like it way
Mhm.
more. And in my notes, I put, how did they make Finrod, fucking Finrod, menacing?
Dude, he's
it's so well
creepy.
done. And like, if you like read anything as far as like what Finrod does in the Silmarillion, you're like, how are you making Finrod scary? Like, he's a badass, but he is like the most goated elf. You know, like he's the most elf, and you're making him scary. This is crazy.
I love that scene. I love their conversation. I love how he's using Finrod to try and buy over Galadriel. It's a very smart idea. I
Mhm.
love that he's like, you needn't lie to them. Simply let the work proceed, which is what Sauron has been doing this entire time. He's just kind of just been like letting them continue to do their own thing and following along and getting closer and closer to what he wants by that method. And then I like when he goes, you know,
Well, and then she does listen.
yeah,
Well, it changes it in a little way, but
Yeah.
she does listen actually.
yeah.
when you think about it, it's pretty scary. I like how they make him feel very strong and badass in this. You know, like
Yeah.
he's always felt strong, like in like the movies, like for example. But like he's just very strong, badass, imposing without being a massive
Yeah, like armored
hulking
dude, you
armored
know.
dude. Yeah, exactly.
I love that Finrod is like, remember the thing I told you last time? And he says, touch the darkness once more, which is great because it's similar to what was actually said, which Finrod says, sometimes we cannot know until we have touched the darkness. In response to when she's like, how do I know which lights to follow? Um, so it's similar to what he said, but it's like this corrupted and twisted version of it,
Right.
which is really good to be coming from Sauron. Um, I really, really, really enjoyed that line. I just, oh god, when they're on the boat, dude, and like all the water stills, and you can see it stilling as like it's going out into the horizon. You can see
Yeah.
like this ripple as the waterfall still. I think maybe one of the best shots in the whole show when
In
the camera,
TV.
yeah, in TV, like in general, yeah,
Period.
when the camera turns around to look down into the water and you see the reflections and
Yes, dude.
it's Sauron in his armor, and it's like the kind of dark queen version of Galadriel that we kind of see in the movies a little bit. It's in
Yeah.
when she's giving her whole speech to Frodo, which then Halbrand pretty much gives her this speech in this one where he's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
she says that, you know,
It's a throwback to the speech.
yeah, she's like, you would make me a tyrant or whatever. And he's like, no, a queen, fair as the sea and the sun, stronger than the foundations of the earth. Like, oh, and that's all shit that she says to Frodo later on. And I think that adds a lot of depth to her scene with Frodo later on. That this is
I
kind
that
of
it
like,
adds. It's not reductive.
no, it's like now it feels even more like she's faced a test of her own in that scene and passed it. You know,
Right.
when she's being offered the ring. Which is kind of the idea of that scene already, but it makes it a little more clear.
Yeah, and I like that they still, it's not like, oh, I've been found out, let me try to trick her or whatever, right? But also, it's still, they do so good at making it feel very real, where he's like,
Mhm.
you know, like, you told me after the battle, like, to just be free of whatever it is I had done before. And she's like,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do for the atrocities you've done, something along those lines, right?
Yeah.
He's like, no, that's not how you feel.
Yeah. That's all
And
you
he goes,
told
you
me.
told me I had done evil and you did not, like, I told you that I had done evil and you did not care. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
snap.
Dude.
It's so good.
And I love how he's like, together we can save Middle Earth. And she's like, save or rule. And he just goes, I see no difference. And I'm like, oh,
That was good too. Well,
like,
and then when she's like, no, immediately after,
yeah.
the scene where it's just very much just their faces
When
back
it's
and
the
forth.
the cutting between the close ups. Oh my God.
Yes. And he goes, well, they wanted to throw you out just asking for a few
Yeah.
petty army. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then what do you think they'll do when you tell them that Sauron lives because of you? And then they put the stuff on
Oh.
his voice and everything.
Oh God. Yeah.
So good. And
I
then he just casts her into the sea, basically.
yeah.
But what's even more morbid about it is, so like, she's just laying in the river,
That whole time.
drowning.
Yeah.
And it's like such an avoidable death when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like, not for her, like, she can't do anything. She's like, he's fully in her head, but like, it would be such a tragic death to just drown in a river that you can stand up in, you know?
Yeah.
Just a like a more like a stream, not even a river.
Yeah.
It's like a little stream. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God. That makes it even more menacing to me.
Dude, when Elrond finds her, dude, if I was Elrond, I'd be like, hang on.
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on? Why were you drowning in the river? Like,
Yeah.
you know, I get that she can't tell them because like I mean, you know, Sauron scared her. You know, he's like, look,
Like, I can kind of get it. Yeah.
but it does still feel weird, you know, that she's
Well-
not like, he's Sauron, don't do it. You know, like, I
Well,
guess they
and-
wouldn't believe her more than likely. Because like she's got this kind of reputation for this, and even if they did believe her, it's not gonna be good for her. So I kind of get it, but at the
Yeah.
same time, watching this whole thing happen is like,
No, yeah. I agree. I can kind of get why she doesn't tell them, at least immediately, that he's Sauron, right?
Yeah.
But in the line that she says, because he's like questioning her, and she talks about, you told me about making the same mistake again,
Yeah, yeah.
but then she's just literally not telling the truth to him, like in that line, right?
Yeah.
Like, since when is telling the truth going to be an evil thing, my guy? Like, come on now.
Yeah.
And then she also ends up just listening to him, like, okay, you don't have to lie to them, but just let them proceed. But then
Mhm.
she goes, and I can understand, she wants to have the rings be made because it can help her people, right?
Mhm.
From not dying. And so it makes sense. Then she goes, okay, well, let's make a third one so that there's
Oh, dude, I love
balance.
that line. One corrupts, two divides, three brings balance. Um, I also really love the idea of when she's like, Hallbrand's gone. If he ever shows up again, nobody fucking talk to him. I love it like cuts to Celebrimbor, and I'm like, he's not gonna listen to that. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I knew immediately that he was kind of like, I don't know. I might talk to Celebrimbor. I might talk to Hallbrand again. I don't know that I'm gonna
Yeah.
listen to you. Um, dude, I was so sad when the dagger got melted down.
Dude, that music that plays when like there's an elven saying it only happens during that. Like it doesn't happen during the rings being made.
Yeah,
It's just when the dagger's being melted down. And I think it's supposed to be a very, Valinor first age type of I would assume if I went back and watched the first episode, there would be something similar to it, right?
yeah,
It's so beautiful.
it is.
I
I'm
I
listening
just
to it
want that
right
for an
now.
hour, please. Like
uh,
hour long version, please.
I'm listening to it right now. It's called "True Creation Requires Sacrifice." It's on the main album. Um,
Hell yeah.
and
That's
then
going on the playlist.
we get into the forging of the elven rings, and it's incredible. I mean,
Yeah.
the Eye of Sauron being formed in the melting,
It
like,
looks a lot
or
like it when he
like,
drops the mithril in, yeah.
yeah, it's really good. I love Elrond finding the Southland's lineage. We were all scared for a second. We were like, "Oh my god, is he gonna find Galadriel?" like
Yeah,
the
dude.
fucking
Oh
shapeshifting
my
thing,
god.
But so
Right, like he shapeshifted into
yeah,
Galadriel. Oh
yeah.
my god.
So it kind of does seem like Elrond is probably gonna figure out what happened.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. He definitely knows that Halbrand's not the heir, right? Because he
yeah,
reads it, he puts two together. Elrond's
yeah,
clearly a very, very smart and cunning character throughout the whole show. But he doesn't know that he's Sauron, right? He knows
no,
that he would have to be somebody pretty powerful in order to, like, really fuck up his friend Galadriel, who's, like, he, in his mind, is the GOAT, you
yeah,
know? But if she doesn't at least confide in Elrond, who Halbrand is in season 2, I'm gonna be a bit mad. Like, I could see her not wanting to tell Gil-galad or whatever,
yeah,
but if she doesn't at least tell, well, and with you saying, how Celebrimbor when she says, "Oh, don't treat with him," I guess that I feel like that adds like either a wrinkle to my third theory, which we'll talk about, or it adds like a whole like a fourth theory, like, but because okay, there, I won't go into the theories, but right now the problem is that what's supposed to happen is the 7 rings for the dwarves and the 9 for men,
yeah,
which they weren't actually originally supposed to be for men. I think they all 19 are supposed to be for elves.
uh-huh,
But what ends up happening is basically Anatar teaches Celebrimbor how to make the 7, and then it's like vague around the time, but Celebrimbor makes the 3
uh-huh,
by himself, not with Anatar, but he like is physically with Anatar when he makes the 7 and the 9, but then makes the 3 on his own. And then basically what ends up happening is then Sauron puts on the 1, goes to dominate them all. But to me, it's how do we get to the point where you make the other 15,
yeah,
like, or 16 or whatever, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know how we're gonna get there because there's
Probably
a
in a
couple
couple
of theories.
seasons.
It's a couple theories, right? But it's like,
Yeah.
does he come back as Sauron, or like does he come back as Anatar? Does he come back as Halbrand? Does Celebrimbor just fucking make him because he's like, yo, these rings are kind of dope, you know? Like, who knows?
Yeah. I will say when they're making the rings, I'm kind of like when they're putting the gems in, part of me's like, those are gonna fall out.
Well, yeah. Well, that's
They're
how
not
the gems
secured
go
very well.
in, and then they
You
bend
know?
them in. They
I don't know,
bend
dude.
the pieces
Kind
in.
of looks like even after they're bent in when they're just sitting there, I'm like, that don't look too secure, dude. I think that's gonna fall out, dude. I don't know.
I don't know, dude. Celebrimbor's he might be a bit dumb, but he is a master jewel crafter.
Hey, that might have been the one I was looking at might have been the one that like Elrond did, you know? Maybe that was the one that Elrond was like, Celebrimbor was like, hey, could you spend that for me, you know? And Elrond did a shitty job. Who knows, dude?
Okay.
And then the transition into
I'm sorry. I just wanted to say
go ahead.
So you know how like you see the other elves working on the jewels and they're like filing them away?
Yeah.
They're called the jewel smiths or the elven smiths. And what they're called in Elvish is like insane. It's the Gwaith y Myrdain. It's like insane. I really like the name. It means people of the jewel smiths.
Yeah, I love the transition to Sauron walking into Mordor, and from like you see his eye up close, and he looks incredible. I love hot Sauron. Thank you very much, showrunners. Sar Daddy, if you will. And then the credits roll, and that's a wrap on season 1 of Rings of Power.
Yeah.
And an incredible song starts to play that I'm listening to right now.
It's really good. It got stuck in my head. It reminded me a lot of the Two Towers ending.
Yeah.
You know, when like Smeagol's like plotting that he's gonna lead him to Shelob, and it plays Smeagol's theme then. And just the vibe that, you know, some terrible shit's about to happen.
Yeah.
Just very much made me feel a lot like that. And then the song and melody being very like one that just gets stuck in your head.
So I will give you guys, you anti-Halbrand weirdos, one last moment of copium. He is not credited as Sauron at the end of this episode. He is still only credited as Halbrand.
A crumb.
You have a crumb of hope. Half of a crumb of hope. Ain't no way. But I did look. I went back the second time. I was like, was he? Because I asked the first time when we just were finishing it, but nobody looked. And so I went the second time and I was like, okay, they still only credit him as Halbrand, but you know, ain't no way. You're in denial, but you can have a little bit of it.
Like, I don't like bringing in interviews into it, but they literally state in the interviews that he's Sauron. Hey, so, dude. Like, sorry, guys.
Guys, hold.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, it's okay. It's just they're tricking us. They're tricking us.
Also, the fact that in some of the interviews I've seen with the showrunners, they are like, I don't know who the stranger is. We'll have to see on his journey. It's like, come on, guys. Like, I get it, but at the same time, bruh, let's be real. But yeah, man, such a great episode. I'm so excited to see Sauron just do badass stuff in this.
Yeah, so we're going to wrap it up here. Next week, we're going to be back talking about the season overall and just kind of theorizing where do we think season 2 is going to go? What do we think season 2 might cover in terms of this epic tale that they have to tell? And then also next week, we'll probably outline kind of some of the drought content that will come out in the next 2 years. We have some ideas of stuff to do. One of them being talking about the movies or whatever. We'll come up with some stuff. Maybe I can convince Jason to watch Wheel of Time, because that is considered like the bridge between what Tolkien started and what like Game of Thrones popularized. It's kind of, it starts very Lord of the Rings and then transitions into a more kind of modern fantasy.
Okay.
So that might be interesting to watch if we're really, really desperate for something to do. But we still have next week to go. So we're not lost yet. We haven't gone wandering off trail just yet.
Dude, They're gonna make me wander on off trail for 2 years, man.
Dude.
Well, they said 2024, so maybe it's like January 2024, guys. So it'll only be like a year and 2 months, definitely.
I do hope that now that they've moved their production to the United Kingdoms, that there won't be as much of a delay between seasons 2 and 3 shooting. My copium hope is that it took so long because they had to move all the sets. And that if they had just been like, okay, write the season and get back to it, it wouldn't have been as long to get shooting. So
right. Well, and then, post-production or pre-production, I mean, is so you have to decide, okay, what is the elven armor going to look like? Okay, well, why does the elven armor look like this? Okay, well, let's do like 8 million different renditions of it and then decide what one we want to do. And then you got to do that with like literally every single piece of equipment, like every single prop, every single anything in order to give it the depth required for like an epic fantasy like this, right?
Yeah.
And I think it would be really cool. I hope that they're just like completely in on the Lord of the Rings meta that is, okay, you film everything, but then you also film people filming everything because
dude.
then you get tons of behind the scenes type of stuff. And
here's the thing,
that'd be really cool.
It's not going to happen because of the way leak culture is now.
That's true. That's
like,
true.
I
it was
really,
a time before leak culture. That's true.
Yeah, which sucks because I say this anytime documentaries are brought up, like filmmaking documentaries are brought up, but I will continue to say so. My favorite things in the world are the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes documentaries and the Star Wars The Last Jedi documentary that is all about Mark Hamill and Rian Johnson.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
It's incredible. It's called The Director and the Jedi, and it's about them like shooting during the shooting of Last Jedi, because infamously Mark Hamill was not a fan.
Hates The Last Jedi, and he's
infamously Mark Hamill at the beginning did not agree with the choices being made in The Last Jedi.
I would also say he doesn't. I would say he doesn't like it still.
And then multiple times has said that he came around on it. Repeatedly over and over again.
I think he came around on a massive pay increase. That's what I think. I think he may have came around on multi-million dollars.
But what I will say is I have so much respect for Mark Hamill, Rian Johnson, Kathleen Kennedy, everybody involved in that production, because instead of trying to pretend that it didn't happen, there's a whole 2-hour documentary about it.
Right.
Whereas with the latest Star Wars movie, they were like, no, it was perfect to shoot. Everything was fine. And you read any behind the scenes story and it's like, it sounds like this was a mess, know?
Yeah.
But so I respect that they were like, no, here's a documentary about that conflict.
I'm gonna hold out some sliver of hope. No hope is meager, Sean.
That's true.
So
you're right.
Maybe they'll have something,
God, it'd be so
I'm not
great.
expecting 30 hours or whatever, like in the Lord of the Rings films, but, it would be cool.
What they should do, right? What they should do is do what they did for the Star Wars prequels. It was one of the Star Wars prequels. I think it might have even been all of them, where they had a live webcam on set.
That would never happen nowadays.
They had a live webcam on set, and you could just see people building sets, painting shit. If you logged into the webcam or whatever. It was pretty cool.
It would be really, really cool if they had some type of videos that they would put out where they show, oh yeah, this is
Here's
some orc armor
and shit.
This is how we make some orc armor, blah blah blah. Some of the concept art, stuff we've already seen. That would be really cool.
I hate leak culture, dude. I don't care. I just want to see cool behind the scenes shit.
People who leak shit are cringe.
Yeah.
Just let it happen.
Let it happen. And also, if they release a video where they're like, here's a look at a set, that's not a spoiler, my guy. All right? That's all I'm saying. Don't get mad at behind the scenes videos because they was spoiled. Yeah, just don't watch it, dude. This whole spoiler culture's gotten out of hand, Jason. It's gotten out of hand. We need to push back against spoiler culture.
Yeah, that's what we'll talk about next episode, guys. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching.
Why don't you plug our stuff first?
Yeah. Thank you so much for watching. You can find me mainly on Twitch at Super SpikeGhetti Bros. Also, join the Discord. I'm in there all the freaking time. We can talk about whatever, video games, all type of stuff. Also, check out the YouTube channel, Super SpikeGhetti Bros. And then, check us out on Twitter. I don't run the Twitter. Mike does. Previous guest, my brother.
Yo.
SpikeGhetti Bros. And Sean, where can they find you, sir?
You guys can follow me on Twitter at Sean_AFK. Also on Twitch, twitch.tv/Sean_AFK. You guys absolutely have to follow Alex on Twitter. They made our juiced cover art at Alex_BigBoy. Follow Fabio or Shane if you're nasty on Twitter at Fabio the Iguana, and follow Shane Plunkett and Jesse Wright on Meadow Vista Media on Twitter at MVM_studio. They were also on the show in that little bonus episode that you should listen to if you haven't already. Also, go to the website, meadowvistamedia.com. As always, all these links are in the episode description.
Awesome. Well, I mean, it's not the last episode, but it's the last episode talking about a new episode. So thank you guys so much. Especially if you watched every episode. You'd be like, I was here, I watched every episode. I was here. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week for the recap. We'll talk about some theories and everything. Enjoy your 11sies. We'll see you next week for second breakfast.